The interesting thing with most addicts and alcoholics is that somehow, some way, they feel very uncomfortable in their own skin, that they never really feel like they fit in. Hello, my name's Ken Seal and let's talk addiction. In the last video, we started our discussion about the holistic view of addiction. And we said that addiction, in fact, has four parts. It's physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. And in the last video, we discussed the physical part. Now, today, I want to discuss the emotional part. The interesting thing with most addicts and alcoholics is that somehow, some way, they feel very uncomfortable in their own skin, that they never really feel like they fit in, okay? It's an interesting thing. They just want to belong and to be a part of something, but somehow it never seems to work. Personally, I remember, growing up in my home that I never felt like I fit in with my family. I never felt I fit in with my church. And at school, I really felt out of place. I never felt like I fit in. It seemed like everybody else seemed to get it, but I didn't. And I don't understand what that was or why, but I just never felt like I fit in. Another issue that most people with addictions have is they have what we call black and white thinking, all or nothing thinking. And what that is that to be good. Now, most people understand that everybody has some good, some bad, and some ugly. That's because they're human. We have all different kinds of emotion. And that's okay. But for the alcoholic addict, we have this black and white thinking. We think that to be good, we must be 100% good. If we're 99% good and 1% bad, then we are bad. It's a form of perfectionism, which really does get in the way because there's no way you're always going to be 100% good. Now, let me give you an example of that. Years ago, I had a friend, actually a client of mine, who had been drinking for years, 30 years. And he decided he was going to get sober. So on January 1st of one year, he decided to quit. He got involved with AA, he got involved with counseling. He was working really hard and doing a very good job, and he managed to stay sober the whole year up until the last week of December. And the last week of December, he was out shoveling snow, and any of you who have ever grown up in Michigan, you know that in December in Michigan it's cold. Well, he decided for whatever reason, it'd be a good idea to just have a half pint. I mean, it's just a little bit to take the edge off. I've been good. The minute that he drank that half pint, he went from I was good to now I'm bad. Now I'm bad. Everything I've learned in the last year has been wasted. Everything I've accomplished in the last year doesn't count. And he went on to drink a fifth or two and then ended up back in jail. And when he got out 90 days later, he came to visit me, and I said to him, David, what the hell happened? And he said, I don't know, Ken. He said, I was doing great. I said, I know you were. I watched you. You were doing really great. He said, but the minute I took that drink, I thought I blew it, that everything was bad, that obviously I was no good. Nothing will ever come for it. No matter what I do, I'm always going to be bad. And I looked at him, I said, David, I get how you feel, but for the first time in 30 years, you were sober for 11 months and 3 weeks. That seems like a lot of progress to me. But you see, in his mind, it's all or nothing. I'm either good or bad. Okay, so that's a real problem for most people with addictions because they have those ways of looking at the world, and emotionally it drives them nuts. The third thing that goes on is that people with addictions tend to feel things more deeply for some reason. They just feel things more deeply. They look at the world and they think the world shouldn't be that way. I'll be honest with you, I can't even watch the news anymore because when I see what people do to people, it just blows my mind. I cannot figure out how people can treat each other like that. And that's a hard one to understand too, but we tend, as addicted people, tend to feel things deeper than most people do. There's a great movie that you ought to get it, if you get a chance you want to watch. It's called The Days of Wine and Roses. I believe it came out in 1960. Jack Lemmon and some blonde lady, I never can remember her name. But the story is basically this. Jack Lemmon's a pretty heavy drinker. He meets this gal. They get married. They both get farther and farther into alcoholism until such time that they've lost everything. They finally decide to quit. They go to AA. They get sober, and it's working. And then she relapses. He comes home to their apartment one evening, and she's packing to leave. And he's saying, why are you leaving? She says, I just can't do it. He says, well, why not? We did it before. If we can do this again, I know we can. And she says, I can't. And he goes, why? Why can't you do this? She says, because when I look out this window at New York City and I'm sober, it's an ugly, dirty, filthy place, and I cannot live in that world. But when I look out this window at New York City when I'm drunk, it's beautiful. So those are 3 areas that cause problems for people with addictions. Emotionally, they don't feel like they fit in. They have black and white thinking, and they tend to be very sensitive. And that's pretty common for a lot of the people I've talked to over the years, okay? The other thing that happens that's really interesting is that people tend to stay emotionally where they were when they first got involved with the drugs or alcohol. As an example, I would talk to the people in my classes at the prisons, and I'd ask the guys, go around the room and ask them, when did you start using? And the average age is probably 15. In fact, statistically, now I think the average age of people using drugs and alcohol is even lower than that, but let's just say it's 15. And if you think about it, from age 15 to 35, the average person, you go through difficult times. It's called living life. You got good times and bad times, but most people learn to live with the bad times and deal with them in a positive manner. Okay, they get input from people, they get help from their friends, but if you're drinking and drugging starting at the age of 15, then your major coping skill becomes the drug, becomes the alcohol, and you never really learn to deal with life on life's terms, because the alcohol becomes your main coping skill. So at age 35, chronologically, you're 35 years old, but emotionally, you're still a 15-year-old because you've never gone through any pain, any issues. Every time something bad happened, you took a drink. Every time something good happened, you took some drugs to celebrate. Okay? It's funny, when I am talking to the guys at prison, I tell them, quite frankly, I says, the reason why you're in prison? And I get all kinds of answers. Well, I was framed, or I got caught doing this, or I caught a case. The bottom line, the reason that these men come to prison is because they're not men. They're children. They act like children. And I tell them that. You're here because you don't know how to be a man. They don't like it when they hear it, but basically the answer to that's real simple. You want what you want when you want it. To hell with the rules. To hell with the law. We don't care if we hurt people. You don't care if you embarrass your parents. But that's not how a grown-up, responsible man acts. That's how a child acts. Okay? And it isn't really prison. It's an adult wannabe daycare center. Okay? Because these people have gotten stuck in those early years emotionally. And I don't care if they're 25, 35, 45, 55, people who started with their addiction in their mid-teens, which is when most people do, that get addicted, they're going to be stuck there, emotionally stuck there. And if you're the friend or family member of an alcoholic or drug addict, you can see that. You can see that your friend, your family member acts like a young person. They don't act like adults. They don't do the things that adults do. So there you go. Emotionally, we are stunted. And we need to deal with that. And again, when we get down the road, when we get to the part where we're talking about how you fix these things, we will go into detail on how you can deal with the emotional part. So that's kind of all I got for today. Next time, we're going to talk about the psychological component of the holistic view of addiction. So I'll see you next time. Take care. Hi, my name's Ken Seal, and this is Let's Talk Addiction. Now, if you like what you've seen and you think it can be helpful, and I believe it can be, I've been helping hundreds of people for years, hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll keep these coming. Thank you.